All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Alpha Art Gallery's Meet the Artist series. My name is Ava Colleran, and I'm a curatorial intern here at Alpha Art Gallery. I'm here today with Karen Goldberg, who is an exhibiting artist in the New Brunswick Art Salon Oil Sculpture and Mixed Media exhibition. How are you today, Karen?
Well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. I guess just to start off, could you share a little bit about the journey that led you to becoming an artist? Were there any specific experiences or influences that guided you towards this path?
Sure. Since I was a child, I was always interested in drawing. I copied a lot of cartoons when I was young, and that interest never left. My husband, when I went to college, though, however, I decided to find a career path, and I studied accounting, and I went to college for accounting. Uh, and it wasn't, but I continued to always draw and sketch. And one day my husband came home with some oil paints and an easel, and I set it up in my one bedroom apartment in Queens. And that's when I just really started painting. So without really knowing what to do, I just kind of felt compelled to paint.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think a lot of people can relate to feeling passionate about art, but maybe like you need to have a more like practical career path. But it's really great to see how far you've come. That's awesome.
Thank you so much. I think I just found my way later in life. That's all. I just didn't know
Yeah,
early who I was really.
yeah, it's hard to know. All right. So my next question is just a lot of your pieces in the exhibition appear to be made using oil paint. Is there something in particular about oil paint that attracted you to it or allows you to express your artistic vision?
That's a great question. So I started with oil paints, and I don't know why my husband bought me oil paints, but he did, and I never veered off from that. I love them from the get-go, and I love the smell. Now I love the smell, and as I got older, I appreciated the time element that's required when you're an oil painter, and you have to be very patient with the paint and let it settle. And I'm also a elementary and middle school art teacher, so I am a very patient person, and so the oil painting really fit into my style. It was very appropriate for me to continue with oil painting as opposed to acrylic or something or watercolor.
Yeah, that's great. Definitely seems like it worked out.
Yes, it did.
And your journey from working in finance to then becoming an artist and art educator shows that you have a rich and evolving career path, as well as a wide range of skills. How have these different phases of your life influenced the direction of your artistic work and the themes you have chosen to explore?
So my journey was such that I ended up having twins. I was working in Manhattan as in finance, and I became pregnant with twins, and I had to stop work early because of that. And that was actually when my husband got the oil paints for me. So I was painting in my one bedroom apartment, very cramped, and then the twins came and they were there, and the oil paints. Um, I so I just kept painting, and I was fortunate enough to be able to stay home, and I raised my kids, and then I had a third daughter. And it was at that time I started taking classes at the Montclair Art Museum. I took adult drawing classes in the evenings when I could. And I just really was getting serious about my art. And so I think a lot of my work shows I definitely have a math sort of mind. And I think a lot of my work, I tend to always be interested in architecture. I know we have a lot of my landscapes in. Several of my landscapes have structures in them. I think that's part of the way my brain works. I like that organization and that structure. And so I think my background, my being good at math, I guess, and just sort of led me to develop the painting in the way that I do. And it is structured and it is organized. And for the most part, most of my paintings before I begin, everything is from a photo. I paint from a reference photo. Everything is gridded. So I'm very precise about perspective and all that.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Kind of having like that math part of your brain that works into your art. That's awesome. Yeah. I also noticed that you are the co-creator and illustrator of Bumpy Books, a book that helps young children learn to read. What influenced you to create this book, and has working on it had a larger impact on your artistic work?
So Bumpy Books was a cooperative endeavor between myself and my cousin who would come over. She's a reading specialist in New York. And she would teach her students in a certain way how to, I'm just giving you the background of Bumpy Books, of what it is exactly. So she had this strategy that she would use with her children, and she's explained it to me. And I designed the structure of the book according to what she needed. And I did the illustrations for it, of course, very child friendly. And then we put the bumps on the pages, and we got a patent for that. So that book, years ago, we did it many years ago, but schools throughout the country still buy this book and use it, as do parents. And I don't know that the creation of that book influenced my art so much as the way that I created the book is a reflection of my style. And that is that kind of structured and kind of, I don't want to say precise, because that's not really the right word, but there's an organization to it. And I like organization. Although if you looked at my studio, you would think that's not the case, but I do like organization. So I would say more that my art is reflected in the style that Bumpy Books, how that evolved. And I also have another book, which is called Funny Side Up, which is a book of photographs of eggs that I put in little vignettes. It's very fun. And that got published a couple of years ago as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow. Distinguished author and artist. That's
so
great.
Yes, my skills are like broad but never fine-tuned. I get to spend enough time in one area to really get expert at it. I just sort of I'm very broad in what I like to do, and I let myself have that freedom to do that, to explore what I want.
Yeah, try new things. That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, after looking more into your artistic works, I noticed that many of them include scenes of nature, architecture, people, and moments in everyday life. What inspires you to choose these scenes?
So I'm always inspired by beauty. If I see something and I find it to be beautiful, it's almost like I just want to share that. And I'm captivated by it, and so that's it. There's nothing more to it. I do think that my work does, to me it does anyway. I hope it does for others. I feel like my work has a peaceful element to it. There's a calmness to it, a clarity to it. And so that is, I see something beautiful, and I'm just working on a piece now that I saw an image, and I took an image, and I'm working through this painting right now. And it's only because the image struck me. I loved it. I love the image. I'm going to paint the image. That's kind of how I do it. And so I think that's about it for that. That's yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't think it needs to be like a lot more complicated than that. Just
No, I love it, and I want to paint it, and that's it.
yeah,
So yeah,
great.
it has to make me feel joy. It has to, that's it.
Yeah,
Hopefully somebody else finds the same joy.
yeah, great. Sharing that with others, that's awesome. So your painting, Venice After the Rain, depicts a beautiful street in Venice, presumably after it rained. The street looks wet, and many people are still holding umbrellas. For me personally, the warm light coming from the buildings evoked feelings of nostalgia and peace. When this piece, and your work in general, is shown in gallery settings, how do you imagine audiences engaging with them? What reactions or reflections are you hoping to inspire?
So I always appreciate when somebody takes the time and really looks at my work. I love that. And I watch them looking at it, and that's very satisfying. And so just that somebody engages, views my work, and feels peace, feels a sense of calm, appreciates the beauty. And that painting, that Venice after the rain, that scene, I took that photograph and I found it so interesting that after a rainy day and the sun was not out and it was probably kind of dusky-ish, and after the rain and people are soaked and they're dragging their umbrellas, and yet it was such a beautiful photograph that I knew it would make, I wanted to paint it. I wanted to paint that scene. And I hope people look at it and feel like what I appreciated, what I saw, and the beauty in that scene on a random night, after it was pouring. And it's beautiful. And it's beautiful that it rained and it's still gorgeous. That's Venice. That's Venice. It's beautiful.
Yes, it was very beautiful. And that's why everyone should come to the exhibition to be able to see it in person.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was also particularly drawn to your piece, Holding On. It is a beautiful piece depicting a river surrounded by trees and rocks. I was also intrigued by the title, Holding On. I interpreted this as holding on to a beautiful day or moment spent surrounded by the scenery, but I was wondering if this was your intention or if there was another meaning behind holding on, and what you hope viewers will take away from this painting.
So first of all, I love your interpretation of my title. However, that is not what I was thinking when I gave it the title. And I have to say, titles are very important to me. Venice After the Rain is pretty self-explanatory. However, I like titles because I like that you can use the words to sort of spark a conversation. And so for this one, for that one painting, I also like that painting. I was in California and I was on an elevated space and I was looking down at a ravine, and there were homes that were, and down below was rushing water. And there were homes that were sort of like on the precipice of these cliffs, and trees as well. And the trees were exposed, the tree roots were exposed because of all of the erosion. And so actually holding on was kind of like a tribute to these trees that were basically defying gravity and holding on to that earth and not falling into the sea. And because it was such a dramatic space where I was, and you could see the danger, like, that these homes were kind of on the edge, and these trees were really just barely hanging on. And that's where I got the title.
Yeah, great. That sounds beautiful.
So that painting, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you go on.
That painting also, the style of it is much looser than a lot of my other stuff. Especially when I put architecture in, I get to be much more organized and structured. And I really like that painting because it let me be a little bit freer.
Yeah, that's great. Just trying lots of new things like we kind of talked about before. So
Yes.
It's such a beautiful painting.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, great. And then I also wanted to discuss your piece, Port Authority Parking Deck, NYC. In contrast to the last piece we talked about, this one depicts a much more urban scene. When coming up with ideas for new pieces, how do you decide if you want to create something inspired by more natural or urban landscapes?
I think it's just what strikes me at the time. I think it's always, that's my dog, I'm sorry. It's always what strikes me at the time. I happen to be at the Port Authority bus terminal at that time, parking the car, and it was the golden hour, and everything looked beautiful. And again, I guess it strikes me when it's a very unexpected beauty. So the Port Authority parking terminal, nobody would say that's on my list of the most beautiful places to go. Um, and yet there was a beauty in that. And the way the light reflected off the buildings, the light reflecting off the cars, it was a stunning image. And so I felt compelled again to paint it because I loved the way it looked. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's super awesome. And that's like almost exactly what our whole exhibition is about. It's like the mundane in motion, so kind of like the beauty in the everyday. So that's
Every day, and things that are overlooked,
Mhm.
and it speaks to that the Venice painting as well, that it's not a bright sunny day, the sun's not shining, and yet it's so beautiful. The reflections are so beautiful. And so I think that's what I was moved by that scene. And it's an everyday scene that people park their cars there and go to work every day, and yet take the time and smell the roses, right? Slow down and smell
Yeah.
the
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think that's such an amazing talent to have, especially as an artist, to just kind of
roses.
see beauty in things most people overlook.
Yes, for sure. Thank you for that.
Yeah, awesome. So, I guess of all your works, which is your favorite, or which do you have a particular attachment to? If you don't have a favorite, which piece would you like to talk about in a little more detail for a moment?
So, of my favorite works, I've painted my children, I've painted my husband. Of my favorite works, those are the portraits and the figurative paintings I've done
Mhm.
of my family are my favorites. Aside from that, in this grouping that we're exhibiting, I do like that hanging on, that holding on painting. Um, I think I like it so much because I didn't follow my structure, and I felt very free to find the color and find the shapes and not feel constrained. When I paint architecture, there is a level of constraint that has to happen because it's a man-made structure and you need it to look the way it's got to look. So, but in nature, that doesn't exist. And so I think I don't do a lot of those purely nature paintings without structure because I do like buildings and I like the structures in it. However, I fully enjoyed painting that. I loved the process of it. And kind of circling back to the painting what I want to, right? I don't my I've painted antique cars, I've painted religiously based paintings, I've done political things, I've done still life. I kind of run the gamut. And a lot of painters, when they go through the traditional um, education, like an MFA, I think I have that freedom not to because I just explore everything and I do what I want to do. And that's very freeing and so much fun. And so, um, and now I don't know if I didn't mention this, but I also make pottery now. That's like for the last 5 years, that's something else that I've added to my collection that I'll never get expert at, but it's just a broad range of endeavors, of artistic endeavors. That's who I am. And, I, that's how I am as an artist.
Yeah, no, I think that's really great. I mean, it's beautiful that you love to paint your family and also like trying out pottery, just lots of new things. Like, that's
Yes.
amazing.
So yeah, I just feel free to do this, and I love pottery. So in the summertime, I'm in. It's a garage. I have a wheel in the garage and a small kiln, and I make my pottery in the warm months in the garage. So summer's coming. I'll be done teaching at the school, and I'll be in the garage a lot. And then during the cold weather, I paint usually weekends up in my studio in the house.
Yeah,
So, and
that's
then if something else comes along the way, I do work on that too.
yeah, that's great. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people could, I think, try out more new things and spend more time doing like artistic things. And it's just, yeah, so awesome that you've been
It's
able
just
to
so
develop.
enriching and so fun. And, I think people get a little afraid to try that stuff, but what's to be afraid of? Who cares, right? Who
Yeah,
cares?
that's,
Just go,
yeah, it's such a great way to live. Just like, what do you have to lose?
right? What do you have to lose? It's only a piece of clay or it's only a painting. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
what you're not, it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay to try new things.
Yes, yes.
Great. Well, thank you, Karen. I don't have any more questions. However, if there's anything else you'd like to add that you might have thought during the interview, or anything you're working on, any shows you're going to be in soon, or any lingering thoughts, feel free to share.
I'm good. I am very connected in Montclair to the studio Montclair, and I do a lot of stuff there. I'll have a piece in one of their shows coming up. Um, no, this has been very nice. I'm so delighted that this gallery has asked me to put my pieces in, so thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
We're so happy to have you. Yeah.
Thank you. And that's it. I mean, I really look forward to the opening. I'll be there. And so it's very nice. I look forward to coming to the gallery.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. We look forward to having you. And once again, Karen Goldberg, thank you so much for speaking with us all today and sharing your insight.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.